So, you want to play Last Blade 2, but you don't know where to start? Well then, this video is for you. We're going to go over all the basics of the game, its systems and strategies, and all the advanced tricks and techniques that come with it. This video is going to be split up in two major sections. The basic section, which goes over the bare minimum information required to play the game, and then the advanced section, which touches on advanced mechanics, glitches, and strategies. Timestamps will be available so you can jump to whichever section you want. Also, this guide assumes that you know number notation and already know basic fighting game terminology. If you don't know number notation, here's a visual guide. And if you don't know the terminology, you can reference the Last Blade 2 wiki, specifically the Dream Cancel wiki. The link is in the description for that. Before we get into it, the majority of players play Last Blade 2 on Fightcade, so if you bought the Steam version, you probably will have better luck finding matches on Fightcade instead. If you want to practice or use training mode, there is two methods. You can either change the game BIOS to AES Japan and use the in-game training mode, or you can go into Versus mode and use the Fightcade Training LUA, which will give you access to recording and replaying features. Now, with that out of the way, let's get started. First things first, we're going to talk about the buttons. This is a 4-button game. A is light, B is heavy, C is kick, and D is deflect. 4A is your usual light combo starter, and 2C is your usual low combo starter, although not every character can link their 2C into 4A. Generally, the purpose of each move is fairly standard across the characters, with 4A being your combo starter, 5A and 2A being pokes, 5B and 2B being counter pokes and combo filler, 6B being a slow high damage poke, and so on. There are exceptions, but usually this is true. Which of your jumping buttons is best tends to vary, but usually JA is the standard air-to-air, JB is the big damage dealer, and JC is the standard cross-up. Make sure you read up on what your best buttons are and what they do. Kicks have worse frame data on average than lights or heavies, but can be used for low starters as I mentioned before, and can cause a wall bounce using 6C. 6C is also universally cancelable in power mode only. Every character has access to on-the-ground or OTG moves, the usual ones being 5C and 3B, and a few other unique ones like 8C for Lee and Akari, 8B for Juzo and Mukuro, or 5CD for Shigen. If you want to hit a 3B after running, you will need to input 3BCD, or else a running low attack will come out instead. D is for deflect, which will usually guarantee a punish on the opponent, however, it is very slow on recovery. And different kinds of parries have varying recovery, with air deflect being the slowest. The deflect button can also be used for air recovery or roll tech, both of which are fairly high-risk defensive options. Against strong opponents, using air recovery while close is very likely to get you punished. A roll tech using the D button also puts you in a fully grounded and punishable state, and it can lead to huge damage if you're close as well. When deflecting a grounded opponent, you can usually go into your highest damage combo, and against a jumping opponent, you can either use the deflect follow-up by pressing the D button again for a hard knockdown, or you can go for your own follow-up, the easiest being 6B on the way down. Note that only the first 4 frames will deflect specials and supers, while the next 10 will only deflect normals. If you're ever wondering why a super early deflect happens to work, that's why. Air deflect is active for 4 frames, and low deflect is active for 8. 5CD is the throw input. You can also use 6CD for forward throw, and 4CD for back throw. Keeping in mind that the grab range on throw is extremely small, and you generally need to be directly up against the opponent for it to connect. Command grab and hit grab ranges vary. Note that throws have a fairly lengthy whiff animation at 33 frames and can be punished on reaction with ease. Next up is the mode system. Power mode is generally the strongest option. This mode requires players to link moves together like your more usual SNK games. Attacks also deal more damage. you gain more meter. Frame data is better thanks to the rebound property, which is added to all weapon-based attacks. And you gain access to an additional super at 25% HP called Super Desperation moves. Power mode also can increase an invisible stagger value, which when maxed will cause the opponent to become dizzy. Stun can be mashed out of, but usually it will result in an extended combo. Speed mode requires the player to chain moves together using a cancel system, much like your average anime fighter. However, you can also choose to link moves if you want to for more damage. Attacks deal less damage, you gain less meter, you lose special into super cancels, and your frame data is worse because none of your attacks can cause rebound on block. You do, however, have access to much stronger mix-up options, thanks to the ability to cancel into lows, and an overhead using 5BC, which puts the opponent into a stagger state. However, this stagger is much easier to mash out of, compared to stun. Power mode also has a 5BC, however it is a slow unblockable that is only useful in specific situations. Speed doesn't have SDMs, but they do have Fandango, which is another way to mix the opponent up and deal massive damage for landing a deflect. Some characters can also combo into Fandango. Here is a basic outline of how the speed chains work. These are not set in stone, you can alter these a bit, but generally, when you're going for a mix-up using a speed chain, less is more. The less hits you do on block, the better the mix-up is probably going to be, because there is less punishable windows during your block string. Specials and supers can be cancelled into off of any special cancelable or super cancelable hit as well. EX mode is functionally the same as speed, but it takes 30% more damage and gains even less meter. You also gain access to all metered options in the game, and get your special into super cancels back, but rarely is this mode worth using unless you're playing Moria or Amano. To select this mode, highlight Speed and press C 6 times, go to Power and press B 3 times, return to Speed and press C 4 times. You have to input this within 4 seconds or it won't work. All characters have supers called Desperation moves, and they range from pretty much useless to a character's main source of damage. The most simple way to combo into a DM for most characters is to do JB, 5B, DM. But some characters are unable to link heavies into supers, like Kaede with 2146AB, or Kagami's, well, anything. In those cases, you'll have to use a special cancel from another link to confirm. Normally supers cost a bar of meter, but at 25% health, you can use them as much as you want, free of charge. SDMs are exclusive to Power and EX, and can only be used with a full bar of meter while at 25% health. These supers are often more unique than DMs, but are also much more difficult to use and at times can hurt more than help. Some characters can get a lot of mileage out of their SDMs, like Mukuro, Lee, or Hibiki, while others will usually never use theirs for one reason or another, like Yuki, Akari, or Juzo. Fandango are exclusive to Speed and EX, and can be used at any time as long as you have a full meter. Whether you start with a 2-2A or 2-2B will determine whether the first hit is high or low. You must follow up the first hit with one of 4 sets of inputs, each with a different purpose. The standard one is always ABC, ABC, AB, 236C. It's just there to deal some damage. There's also an alternate version of the standard which changes from character to character, but it deals more damage. Next is the 2C routes, which are for mixing the opponent up mid-string with a low and a high route. The low route also launches the opponent and can be used to combo into another super in desperation range. When inputting these sequences, there's a trick to the timing. You should input the next part of the sequence while the last hit is going through. Fandango is extremely powerful, but it is expensive at all times and often requires a reset setup to avoid being punished, as the opponent can fairly easily react with a jumping deflect. Some characters can also combo into Fandango in the right situation, usually being a crumple or juggle state. An additional metered option that all modes have access to is Guard Cancel, which can only be used on moves that don't cause rebound. If you input 4-1-2-D during block stun, you will blow the opponent back or into the air, and can either use a normal deflect follow-up by pressing D again, or you can use a custom follow-up. Many custom follow-ups still work on grounded opponents, especially follow-ups that include DPs, so if you want to deal the most damage output, feel free to use custom follow-ups on either version. You will usually hear high-level players say that Guard Cancel is the best metered option in the game, and that's because it swings the match's momentum towards the user, and the damage returns can be just as high as regular supers, while also allowing the player to build more meter in the process. Just watch out for Moria because his teleport cancels can blow right through guard cancels. This may seem like a strange addition, however the efficiency of your movement is a big skill factor in this game. We will only be going over the basic options here, but there are some advanced techniques that I'll cover later. Walking is somewhat slow in this game, but it has its uses. Crossing up opponents for most characters is fairly precise, so you can use walking to avoid mix-ups with good timing. Running is very fast in this game, and while the speed of running varies, even the slowest characters are very mobile. Running comes with risks though, as you can't dash block. When you come to a stop, your character will usually skid, and this leaves you open. There are ways to avoid dash skid besides jumping, but that will be a topic for the advanced section. Just know that running isn't super powerful by itself. Jumping is fairly standard in this game. You have two types of jumps, full jumps and short hops. Full jumps are good for preemptively catching short hopping opponents, for tech chasing opponents on Oki, and can be used to cross up at longer distances. However, it is generally outclassed by short hopping. All jumps have 4 frames of pre-jump, so you are vulnerable for a short period. Short hop is notoriously strict in its execution, so don't be surprised if you're having a hard time getting the jumps you want. Short hopping is harder to anti-air and allows for cross-ups at point-blank distances, so it's a very powerful option. If you neutral or back jump, you'll have access to air block, which is also very powerful in this game, since it stops all air-to-airs besides air grabs, and a good chunk of anti-air options. Even Akari's incredibly powerful 2-8C is able to be blocked if you neutral or back jump. However, you will lose to all grounded normals and specials that have the air unblockable property like Setsuna's 623A or Kagami's 623B. Jumping is also very fast in terms of distance covered, and you can snuff out just about any projectile with a dashing full jump. This means that zoning is more or less a non-option unless your name is Koryu, and playing a grounded style is actively putting yourself at a disadvantage, so it's best to use jumps often. It may seem like Last Play 2 has a small roster, but it's actually triple the size thanks to the mode system. There are a few hidden characters in the game, although only 2 characters are actually unique, those being O-Kaide, which is the non-transformed version of Kaide, and Hagure, who is a mirror character. The 2 other characters are Kotetsu, who is effectively Shigen with a unique intro animation, and Koryu, who is only selectable in AES BIOS and is the only banned character. To select O-Kaide, highlight Kaide and press C 9 times, press B 1 time, and then press C 4 times. If you do this correctly, you will hear a soundbite. Then press A to select O-Kaide. To select Hagure, highlight Akari, and press C 8 times, press B 9 times, wait 1 second, and then press C 1 time. If you do this correctly, you will also hear a soundbite. Press A to select Hagure. There's a fairly large range of playstyles available here, so I'll just go over the basic game plans for each character. Keep in mind that EX characters are essentially the same as their speed counterparts. Your aggressive and rushdown style characters are Power and Speed Mukuro, Power and Speed Lee, Speed Amano, Speed Akari, Speed Kagami, Power and Speed O-Kaide, and Speed Setsuna. Your neutral focus characters are Power and Speed Zantetsu, Speed Moria, Power Amano, Power Kagami, Power and Speed Washizuka, Speed Hibiki, Speed Kojiro, Power and Speed Kaide, Power Setsuna, and Speed Yuki. Your defensive characters are Power Akari, Power Moria, Power Hibiki, Power Kojiro, and Power Yuki. And your grapplers are Shigen, Juzo, and Okina. Note that these characters don't have to play the way that I've described, it's just that personally I think this is what they're best at doing. For example, Speed Moria and Power Kagami can both be played very aggressively if you want to, and you can see all kinds of success, but I recommend being more patient while using them. If you're interested in the tier list and more specific character strengths, you should watch my tier list video from a few months ago, or join the Last Blade 2 Discord and ask me any questions there. The next thing that I want to talk about is difficulty. It's not exactly super obvious which characters are easy and which are hard from just looking at them, so I'll give you the rundown. I will only specify modes if there is a significant difference. The easy characters are Lee, Power Hibiki, Juzo, Speed Kojiro, Kaide, Okina, and Setsuna. The medium difficulty characters are Zantetsu, Mukuro, Speed Amano, Akari, Speed Washizuka, Speed Kagami, Shigen, and Speed Yuki. The difficult characters are Moria, Power Amano, Power Washizuka, Power Kagami, Speed Hibiki, Power Kojiro, Okaide, and Power Yuki. All of the characters in the hard section are difficult to recommend to new players since most of them are both hard to pick up and hard to master, so it's a rough way to start out. But if you really love one of these characters and they motivate you to play, don't let me stop you. The combo structure in this game is fairly universal, but can vary much like most things. For light power combo structure, it usually works like 4A, 4A, 5A, special OTG, or 2C, 4AC, 5A, special OTG. The 4AC is a sort of buffer that makes 2C, 4A links a bit easier, and makes 2C, 4A one-frame links that normally wouldn't be possible. For example, you can't link 2C into 4A as Kagami unless you use 4AC. Some characters like to use more 2Cs in their strings for more damage, and others can't use any 2Cs in their combos. You can also achieve this effect with 7A, but 4AC is the usual method. There are more advanced light combos than this for various characters, particularly because comboing into supers from lights is tricky, but we'll save those exceptions for the advanced section. For heavy power combo structure, it's usually JB, 5B special. Nothing more to it really. Also, most characters can add a super after their BMB special. In power mode, your pressure is going to be much more straightforward, so you'll need to get the opponent to open themselves up. The easiest way to do this is tick throw, but the reward is low. We can also cross the opponent up with specific normals. Note that some characters have an extremely hard time doing this, and most characters have to have good positioning to do this. Due to how the game's advanced defensive mechanics work, opponents at mid to high level play will often wait for you to make your move first and then respond. With this patience in mind, you can use empty jumps or late timings often. For now though, focus on grabs and cross-ups as your main means of opening opponents up in power. For light speed combo structure, it usually works like 4AA, 2A, 5B, special OTG. Speed is generally considered the easier mode to learn because of this combo structure that stays consistent through pretty much the entire cast. That being said, you will need to get a feel for the window of cancels, which can feel a bit weird at first. On top of that, the heavy combo structure is the exact same, just JB into the usual string. If you want to combo into super, you'll have to replace the special since you can't cancel it. Speed mode pressure is a bit more of a trap than power pressure, and the reason why I say that is because as a new player, you're going to feel inclined to do full block strings. This is a very bad idea, however, as there are clear holes in speed chains and you're leaving yourself wide open to parries and guard cancels, especially when you press any B buttons. Instead, you're going to want to keep your strings short. If you're going to go for a mix-up, do it right away. For example, if you wanted to do a high-low, input 5A, 5BC, or 5A, 3C instead of doing the full block string. This will both make it much harder to react for your opponent, and will make it much harder to punish you on reaction for doing it. Additionally, if you learn the fundamentals of power pressure and add it on top of your speed pressure, you can be very scary to block. Another thing to keep in mind as a speed player is that you don't need to be close to your opponent to threaten them. This is because speed's ability to convert off of long buttons is much more potent than power, since you can chain. You can be a character length away from the opponent and still convert into full combos, so don't always rush straight in. Oki, on the other hand, is pretty much the same for both modes. When the opponent is knocked down, the idea is that you're going to want to hit them with a meaty as soon as they get up. But in order to do that, you're going to need to figure out which directions are going to get up. They can either stay in place, roll left, or roll right. Most of the time, you're going to want to use a jump in this situation, but there are advanced techniques that make your Oki significantly more terrifying. All you need to focus on right now is to figure out which way the opponent's going to go and respond with good timing. Another thing to keep in mind about combos is that there is a hard cap on the amount of damage you can do in a single combo, that being 180 or 75%. The only way to effectively go through this cap without a reset is to get a stun. Congratulations! You're now knowledgeable enough to start the advanced section. Here we will be talking much more about specific techniques and situations, so it's going to be a bit more complex. To kick us off, we're going to start with the game's signature universal mechanic, Switch Guard. You remember Guard Cancel, right? The input for that was 4-1-2D, and it cut your block stun with a move that interrupts the opponent's string. Well, Switch Guard is pretty similar to that. To input a Switch Guard, change the direction of block you're currently in to the opposite. So if you're blocking high, switch to low. If you're low, switch to high. With proper timing, your block stun will be cut by a very significant amount, allowing you to act earlier than normal. This move is the sole reason why just about every move in this game is punishable on block, but some moves are easier to switch guard than others, and how much your block stun is cut depends on both your own execution and the move that you're switch guarding. If you want to practice your basic switch guard, I recommend using the Fightcade LUA, playing against Zantetsu, and setting him to do 2C, 2C, or JB, depending on the type of switch guard you want to practice. If you time your switch guard well, you can punish Zantetsu before the second 2C. This move absolutely changes how the game is played, as now your defensive strength directly correlates to how powerful you can be offensively. It may sound all-powerful, but there are downsides to consider. For example, you try to switch guard a speed player for their 5A by going from low block to a high block, but then they cancel into a 3C and hit you. There are various methods of punishing people who switch guard too much, and against people who have mastered the technique, these go from helpful to necessary. So it's important to not just be aware of these techniques, but also learn them for yourself. Some of these techniques include instant tick throws, deep jump-ins into instant low, blocked light into low, intentional rebounds, empty jumps, empty cross-ups, empty jump lows, instant overheads, buffered cancels, buffered deflects, and safe jumps. Another thing to note about switch guarding is that the on-block frame data shown in the Dream Cancel wiki is the frame data after a perfect switch guard. So when the wiki says that Mukuro's 4A is -2, that means that it's -2 when you perform a perfect switch guard instead of just on a normal block. I want to talk a little bit more about normals, because normals are often more important to understand and use properly than specials. As I said before, for most characters, 4A is the usual combo starter, and often the best close range button, but there are weaknesses with 4A. Most 4A in the game either uses the character's hand, elbow, or hilt animation, and because the weapon isn't being used, they are mostly exempt from rebound. This means that you can be guard cancelled for using this move, even in power. Also, some characters prefer to use other attacks to start their combos. This is either because their 4A is extremely weak, or because it is outclassed by another normal. For example, characters like Setsuna or Kagami don't start their combos with 4A, because 4A doesn't link into anything that can keep the combo going, mostly because they're too slow. Instead, Setsuna uses his 5A, and Kagami uses his 2C to start combos. Occasionally, a character might find themselves using 2A over 2C to start combos instead, because their 2A outclasses their 2C. This is mainly true for Amano and Akari. The two normals we talked about are most often going to be what you switch guard into, but you can also switch guard into other options depending on the situation, like switch guard command grab at close range, switch guard throw against a jump-in, or switch guard into jump if you want to avoid tick throws yourself. Some characters can get good use out of 6C, assuming they have some way to juggle the opponent, so there may be times where you want to route into that, Only problem is that 6C links are either more difficult than your average link, like Kaide's 1-frame link off of 4A, or are impossible to link into from a standing normal. In that case, you'll need to land a jump in to combo into 6C, which dramatically reduces its usability. Another thing of note is that technically any normal can be used to cross up with good enough spacing and timing, but a lot of those normals are so precise that it's unreasonable to be consistently used as a cross up. It's important to know which of your jumping normals are best used as a cross up. As I said before, it's most often that JC is the best cross up, but there are exceptions such as Hibiki JB, Zantetsu JB, Kaide JA, and so on. There are 3 main types of dash cancel, and all are used for different purposes. The first and easiest of them is what I call attack dash cancel, and as the name suggests, you cancel your dash with an attack. The thing that makes this version of dash canceling very limited is the existence of dash attacks, which will override your cancel after running for a long enough time. You can avoid this limitation on your A normals by inputting a C or a B during the run. This is especially good for characters with strong 5As like Kaide or Washizuka. The second and main type of dash canceling is what we're usually referring to when we talk about dash cancel, and that's jumping while switching axes with the opponent. This is by far the most used and most flexible of the dash cancels and can be used in 2 main situations. The first is when dashing under a jumping opponent. This is very good for keeping a more aggressive opponent on the defensive and can be used to start mix-ups as well. You can either immediately go into a low, jump after for a high, jump over for a cross-up, or throw. The second situation is on Oki. Most of the cast can run over opponents while they're knocked down, although not everyone who can will actually be able to make use of it all the time because the moves they use to knock down are slow to recover. The characters who can't dash over are Kaide, Kojiro, Kagami, and Shigen. You can use dash cancel on Oki to create the exact same situation that we have on dash under, so the opponent will have to block the mix. Keep in mind that a rolling opponent can be run over with any character, so if you want to read a roll and punish with a dash cancel mix-up, you can even with characters who usually can't. We can also utilize dash cancel or air tech to do 2 dash cancels in a row, called a double dash cancel, which, while flashy, isn't super necessary to mix the opponent up. A more precise version of the double dash cancel is the dash cancel walk, where instead we dash cancel as early as possible, and then we walk back to the other side for a more seamless mix-up, similar to the 50-50 loops that Mukuro can do using crawl. This effectively turns dash cancel from a 3-way into a 4-way mix-up. There's also a more advanced and infinitely more precise version of this technique, where you can cancel into the exact spot that the opponent lands and cause the game to freak out. But this may or may not be character specific, and is significantly harder to pull off consistently. I personally have only ever seen a mono use this technique. The final version of dash cancel is the least used version that was brought to North America's attention by Wuxi, that being the proximity guard dash cancel, or PGDC for short. By inputting a back jump at a specific point while inside the range of a move's proximity guard hitbox, your character will stop in place to block, which can also be cancelled into a move. This is a very difficult technique to use effectively as it requires lightning quick reaction speeds and completely depends on the actions of your opponent. When used correctly though, it can make your offense extremely difficult to punish. You may think that damage scaling is a simple concept, however Last Blade disagrees. There are a bunch of moves that simply ignore proper damage scaling and deal obnoxious amounts of damage as a result. Most of these moves are cinematic types like command grabs, hit grabs, and counters. You can tell when an attack has improper scaling when an attack goes through, but the hit counter doesn't increase. Some moves that have improper scaling include Kagami command grab, Amano 646A or B, Shigen counter super, Akari super, Mukuro throw. There are a few more, but you get the idea. Another aspect of scaling has to do with character health. When I say that EX takes 30% more damage, that doesn't mean that they have 30% less health. They actually have 30% increase to scaling received. This applies to character-specific health, which goes as follows. Characters with normal scaling are Kaede, Moria, Setsuna, Washizuka, Amano, and Kagami. Characters with 10% less scaling are Shigen and Juzo. And characters with 10% more scaling are Yuki, Akari, Hibiki, Kojiro, Okina, Lee, Mukuro, and Zantetsu. That means that if you were to pick EX Lee as your character, you would be taking 40% more scaling than normal. That means that those moves that deal no scaling would hurt way more than usual. You can also avoid scaling on your OTG as long as the opponent chooses a neutral wake up. If you delay the OTG long enough, it will drop the combo, allowing you to deal damage beyond the damage cap if you were at that point in the combo, and will deal increased damage. Meter building is also more nuanced than you might expect. Power, as we know, builds more meter than speed, and that's by about 2.5 times on normal attacks. Of course, that's referring to the raw numbers, which in isolation seems like a lot, but remember that speed has chains, which offsets some of that difference. You can build meter in 3 ways: hitting a move, having the opponent block a move, or whiffing a move. Hitting your attacks gives the most meter by a factor of about 40% in power, and 50% of total meter gain in speed when compared to on block. On whiff, it's about 20% in power and 15% in speed. Most whiffed attacks are too slow on recovery to reliably whiff in neutral for the purpose of building meter. The only exception to this is certain command grabs, which can be whiffed occasionally without much risk. Some exceptions to this are any non-A Shigen grab, Juzo's grabs, Kojiro's grab, or Mukuro's grab. Do this more than once at a time in neutral, however, and you're very prone to getting smoked thanks to the movement speed of this game, so be careful. This is another way that EX rears its ugly head, as while on hit it only sees a very minor decrease compared to speed, but on block it loses a whopping 80%, which includes the fact that block normals give a hot 0 meter, only blocked specials give meter. On whiff it's also about a 12% decrease, specifically on whiffed specials, which is why EX tends to only get 1 bar of meter per set on average. Also, before we move on, keep in mind that these aren't flat decrease rates, just averages. I wanted to very quickly touch on run speeds because, like I said earlier, it's not a universal speed. I have a chart made by Japanese players provided to me by Mifune that graphs out the run speeds in the game. The left axis is the speed of the character's run, and the bottom is the time it takes to get there. The fastest character is Kagami, followed by Washizuka. Technically, Shigen is faster than both Kagami and Washi, but only during the first half of his dash. The slowest character is Okina. I talked about the basic combo structure that applies to most characters in the game, but now we're going to get a bit more specific. We'll also be talking about some of the ways players sneak snoopers into light confirms. First thing we're going to talk about is juggle state, which works in a few different ways. The most common version of juggle state is the wall bounce. When characters have supers or specials that are too slow to combo into with their B normals, usually they'll use wall bounces instead as the opponent stays in hit stun for a very long time. For example, if Kaede wants to combo into his 2 and 4 6AB projectile super, he has to combo into 6C. As mentioned before, this can be done using a 1-frame link after 4A, and that wall bounce will give him just enough time to use the super. Setsuna normally has no use for 236B because it's horribly slow. However, if he combos into 6C for the wall bounce, he'll have just enough time to hit it, and 236B in the air causes the other type of juggle state as well. This version of juggle state has the opponent continue to be in a hittable, untechable state until they hit the ground. There aren't many ways to get this state in the game, but some include most DPs, launchers such as Kaede or Yuki's command grab, Fandango launcher, or most infamously, Akari 4B against an airborne opponent. Juggle can technically be done infinitely as there is no programmed juggle limit, but only Akari has a move that causes the juggle state that's fast enough to be used multiple times in a row. This means that her corner combos are uniquely long compared to the rest of the cast, especially in speed with her long-range normals and high hit stun of 4B against grounded opponents. What if you don't have a special that's fast enough to combo off of your lights, and you don't have a 6C that's fast enough either? For some characters, they're out of luck, but for characters like Hibiki, there's a way. Instead of a tight link, Hibiki uses a buffer method to get the super out fast enough. and she does this by inputting her regular 4A combo, and on the 5A part, she instead inputs 2146AC, which still gives her a 5A because she pressed A on the 6 part of the input, then she immediately inputs AB right after. Because AB happens fast enough after 2146 was inputted, the super will come out instantly after the 5A. There are many examples of buffers in this game which make normally impossible inputs possible. Another thing about combos to remember is to practice your combos at different ranges. You should be able to immediately measure how many 4As you can squeak out at the distance you're at. And if you're playing a character with specials that have travel time, you should be familiar with that max distance on that special, so you know when to substitute your ender for a different one. Next is pressure, which we've touched on a few times in this video already, but there's one main thing that I want you to always remember when it comes to advanced pressure game. Not only should your pressure be short and sweet, and include options that are intended to beat switch guarding, but you should also make sure that your pressure is as varied as possible. Always be trying to switch up your timings, the options you choose, and be willing to be aggressively patient. If your opponent is willing to wait, let them wait. If your opponent isn't willing to wait, force them to. The ideal method to pressure is to be calculated and unpredictable. Put effort into learning to not only remember what your opponent has done throughout the set, but what you have done as well. The same applies to defense and Oki, though not quite to the extent that pressure requires. There aren't many ways to mix the opponent up traditionally, and defensive mechanics are extremely powerful, so you have to learn how to crack the opponent's thoughts and expectations rather than their reactions. This game has a fair number of glitches with varying levels of usefulness. Some glitches are so broken that they're banned from use in most competitive settings, and others are completely useless. I'll talk about some of the more standout ones here. Zantatsu J AC glitch. The AC glitch in most situations is very helpful, but it also causes some funky stuff like this to happen. This allows Zantatsu to overhead the opponent infinitely and is totally banned from pretty much everywhere except EVO Japan. Zantatsu Power Air Chain. Zantatsu and Lee are the two characters in the game that can use air chains and speed, but there's a catch. If Zantatsu inputs the chain follow-up in power, while holding 7 specifically, he'll do the chain despite not being in speed. Normally he can do a JA follow-up, but in power he only gets the JC follow-up. This is also banned competitively for the most part. Grounded Air Grab. 3 characters in the game have air grabs, those being Kaede, Akari, and Shigen. All 3 of these characters can perform their air grabs against a knocked down opponent if timed correctly during their wake up. Generally it's unsafe, but it can be used to finish off an opponent. This is more noticeable on Lee, Akari, and Mukuro, who have roles that make them airborne, making timing much more lenient. Moria Teleport Cancel. The AC glitch strikes again. This time Moria can cancel the end of his teleport animation using it, which allows him to perform infinites and be perfectly safe on block. It doesn't work on the C version of his teleport, but he can still cancel the recovery using Proximity Guard. Kaede Broken Wake Up. Kaede can be blocked out of tech options if hit with an OTG while face down. This means that he is forced into a neutral wake up. This can be used to guarantee a Fandango 50-50 on his wake up, or dash cancel mix-ups, and so on. Kojiro DM glitch. If Kojiro hits her DM on the wrong side of the opponent while they're airborne, they'll fall out of the move and be stuck in an unmashable stagger state, allowing Kojiro to follow up with a full combo. This interaction can be forced using a Fandango launcher and her 214C command dash. Realistically, there aren't that many knowledge checks in the game that you wouldn't figure out from just playing, but here's a couple that you may have not known about. Kojiro's DM is an overhead during the final slash. Yuki's DM becomes unblockable if you switch guard direction while blocking it. You can hit Yuki's SDM on wake up very easily, making it only usable after a deflect. Setsuna's super armor can be deleted by grabbing him. You can grab lead during spot dodge, and you can also deflect spot dodge overhead with a low deflect. Okina's SDM can be jumped out of with the right screen position. Juzo's anti-air grab and Shigen's ult grab can be teched out of by pressing A or B depending on which follow-up they choose. Mukuro's 4A and Lee's 2C are -2 on block, meaning you can't punish them with switch guard into normal. You have to switch guard deflect or guard cancel. Mukuro's 646C crawl makes him low profile, meaning you must attack low to the ground to catch him. He can also use it to set up 50-50 mix-up situations. It's important to not use air tech in this situation very often, as he can just 5B and loop you again as much as he wants. Some moves have multi-hits that are too fast to switch guard, and will either cause you to get hit, or won't do anything for you. These include moves like Lee Dive Kick, Santetsu Dive Kick, or Mukuro DM. You can switch guard and jump out of Okina's tick throws. Setsuna's 214B is -22 on hit if you air tech as soon as possible, allowing for full combo punishes with practice. Hibiki's SDM hitbox only covers the ground under her, making jumps a reliable counter. Lee's DM causes a stagger on the first hit, which can be mashed out before the second hit connects, allowing a full combo punish. The stagger can be avoided through juggles, mainly 6214B against a crouching opponent. Lee's DM also has Lee throw his fan upward, which is air unblockable and doesn't disappear when he is hit in certain situations. Zantetsu's DM works the same way as Lee's on hit, except that it also causes a crumple on the second hit that allows him to set up Oki and combo into Fandango in speed. The first hit is also an overhead. Akari's 623B can be punished with deflect no matter what option she chooses, so you should realistically never get hit by this. Akari's 28C is overhead invul, so you can only punish its startup with low attacks. Shigen's DM can be followed up even on block, but you have enough time to switch guard and punish before any follow-ups can come out. Yuki's command grab can hit opponents behind her, unlike most other command grabs in the game. And with that, you should be fully prepared to take on Last Blade 2 and all it has to offer. Special thanks to Mifune, Hembaga, and Dracula X for helping me write and proofread this script. It wouldn't have come out this thorough and organized without them. Also, thanks to them for teaching me how to play the game in the first place. Without them, this video would not exist. I hope this helps clear up some of the confusion that new players have coming into the game. If you have any questions, you're free to come to the Last Blade 2 Discord or my own Discord and talk to myself or other knowledgeable players. Links are down in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.